How many things do you have today that you once believed would make you happy? The job, the relationship, the home, the freedom, something your younger self desperately wanted. And yet, somehow, it became ordinary. Because there is a strange habit of the human mind, the moment more becomes ours, we begin looking for the next more. And so the point at which we will finally allow ourselves to feel satisfied keeps moving. When I earn more, when I find the right person, when life becomes easier, then I'll be okay. But what if the problem isn't that we don't have enough? What if we've forgotten how to experience what we already have? Think about something you once desperately wanted, something that, at the time, seemed important enough to change your life. Perhaps it was a particular job, a certain salary, a home of your own, a relationship, a qualification, a possession. Maybe you have it now. And here's the interesting part. How often do you still think about the fact that you have it? Probably much less than you imagined you would. What was once extraordinary slowly became ordinary. This is one of the mind's remarkable abilities. We adapt. It helps us survive difficult things. But it also means that we adapt to good things. The new home becomes simply home. The new job becomes Monday morning. The thing we saved for becomes another object in the room. The achievement we once dreamed about becomes a line on our resume. And then the mind begins looking toward the next thing. This isn't necessarily greed. It is simply part of being human. But if we never notice it, we can spend our entire lives chasing a horizon that moves every time we approach it. Enough remains permanently one step ahead of us. And that creates a peculiar kind of poverty. Not the poverty of having too little, the poverty of being unable to experience what we already have. Imagine your kitchen table. There is someone who has sat there hundreds of times. Perhaps your partner, your mother, your father, a friend, a child. You have eaten together so many times that nothing about it feels extraordinary anymore. You talk about practical things. What needs buying? What happened at work? Who needs to be where tomorrow? Maybe you occasionally look at your phone while they are speaking. It's just dinner, just another evening. But imagine, for a moment, that years from now, you could return to this exact ordinary evening. Same kitchen, same plates, same voice across the table, same person sitting in that chair. How much would you give to experience it one more time? The evening didn't change. Your awareness of its finiteness did. And perhaps this is one of life's strangest truths. We spend years waiting for extraordinary moments, while many of the moments we will one day miss most deeply are happening quietly around us. Nothing announces them. There is no music playing in the background. Nobody tells us, pay attention, you'll miss this. They simply happen, and then they are gone. Maybe enough isn't something we accumulate. Maybe enough is something we learn to notice before absence teaches us its value. Look around you for a moment, not metaphorically. Actually look. There may be things surrounding you right now that once would have felt like enormous privileges. A warm room, clean water, a bed, a phone that allows you to speak to someone thousands of kilometers away, food in the kitchen, music, books, electric light. Perhaps someone you love is still alive and reachable. Perhaps your body carried you through another day in whatever ways it could. Your lungs breathed. Your heart kept beating. Your senses connected you to something outside yourself. None of this means that your life is easy. And it certainly doesn't mean that everyone has enough of what they genuinely need. There is real deprivation, real loneliness, real illness, real financial pressure, real injustice. Saying what I have can be enough should never become a way of dismissing real suffering. But there is another truth alongside that one. We can have enough and still experience ourselves as lacking, because attention changes the experience of abundance. What we repeatedly overlook eventually becomes psychologically invisible. The familiar face, the ordinary dinner, the safe journey home, the person who always answers, the body that mostly works, the morning coffee, the quiet evening. We often recognize the value of these things only when something threatens to take them away. And that raises an uncomfortable question. Why does absence make things visible to us that presence could not? This is where I think the idea of enough is often misunderstood. Being content does not mean becoming passive. It doesn't mean you stop building, stop dreaming, stop improving your circumstances, stop wanting a healthier relationship, more meaningful work, financial security, or a different life. You can be grateful for your apartment and still dream of a house. You can appreciate your career and still know you are ready to leave it. You can love your life and still want parts of it to change. These things are not contradictions. The opposite of contentment is not ambition. The opposite of contentment is the belief that I cannot be okay until my ambition succeeds. That is a very different way to live. One says, I love what I have, and I'm curious about what I can build. The other says, what I have is inadequate, and therefore I am not allowed to rest until I obtain something else. Both people may work equally hard, but internally they are living completely different lives. One is moving towards something. The other is running away from the feeling of not being enough. And perhaps this is the question worth asking. Am I pursuing more because I genuinely want to grow? Or because I need more to prove that what I am today has value? And perhaps you're listening to this thinking, but there really are things missing from my life. You're right. Maybe you do need more money. Maybe you are lonely. Maybe your work needs to change. Maybe something in your life genuinely isn't enough. This reflection isn't asking you to deny any of that. It's asking whether what is missing has become so large in your attention that it has made everything that isn't missing disappear. Imagine holding a cup. If you stare only at the empty space at the top, it will always look incomplete. There will always be room for more. More money, more success, more certainty, more love. But the empty space doesn't erase what the cup already contains. Perhaps the question isn't, is my cup completely full? Maybe it's, have I actually tasted what is already inside it? Because there is little value in endlessly filling a cup we never stop to drink from. Imagine your younger self could visit your life for 5 minutes. What would they notice? Maybe something you barely think about anymore. The independence you wanted, the home you created, the city you once dreamed of living in, the confidence you slowly developed, the person beside you, even the ability to make decisions that once belonged to someone else. Perhaps they would look around your ordinary life and say, wait, we actually made it here? Not everywhere, not yet, but here. And perhaps there are finish lines you've crossed that you never stop long enough to notice. There is a bargain we make with the future, without realizing it. We say, I'll enjoy life when work calms down, when I earn more, when the children are older, when I lose the weight, when we move, when I retire, when this difficult period is over. And the future accepts the bargain. It keeps taking today's attention in exchange for the promise of tomorrow's satisfaction. But tomorrow eventually arrives, and we often make the same bargain again. This is how decades can disappear. Not because nothing good happened, but because our attention was always slightly ahead of where our life actually was. There's nothing wrong with preparing for tomorrow. but tomorrow should not be allowed to consume today. The future is important. It just isn't the only place your life is happening. So how do we actually experience enough? I don't think repeating "I should be grateful" works particularly well. Gratitude forced through obligation quickly becomes another task. Instead, perhaps enough begins with attention. Tonight, choose one ordinary thing, not the best thing in your life, something almost boring. Your bed, your kitchen, your dog's breathing, the sound of someone moving in another room, hot water on your hands, a familiar face. And imagine very briefly that you could no longer have it. Not to frighten yourself, simply to restore its visibility, then return to it. The object hasn't changed. The person hasn't changed. Your attention has. This is not about pretending everything is wonderful. It is about refusing to let familiarity erase value. You might also ask yourself, what do I have today that I once hoped for? It's an unusually powerful question, because the mind is very good at keeping records of unfinished desires, and surprisingly poor at keeping records of fulfilled ones. Remember them, not to stop wanting more, but to recognize how many finish lines you have already crossed without celebrating them. Maybe enough doesn't have to mean I have everything I need forever. Maybe it can simply mean, for this moment, there is enough. Enough warmth, enough connection, enough beauty, enough breath, enough life, enough for tonight. There is a deeper question underneath all of this. What if there is no final version of life in which everything feels complete? What if there will always be something unresolved, something we want, something we fear, something we are working toward, something that could be better? Maybe that's not a failure. Maybe that's simply what being alive feels like. We often imagine contentment as arriving at a destination where desire disappears. But perhaps contentment is something much more subtle. The ability to desire what is not here without becoming blind to what is. To say, I would like more, and also, there is something here worth loving. To work toward tomorrow without making today pay the price. One day, something will change. It always does. The home changes. The people around the table change. Our bodies change. We change. And the life that feels completely ordinary today eventually becomes a life that no longer exists. So perhaps enough isn't finally possessing everything we wanted. Perhaps it's becoming able to see what is here while it is still here. Keep dreaming. Keep building. Keep becoming. Want more if more matters to you. But don't make today's life prove itself unworthy simply because tomorrow could be better. Look around. There may be something here that your younger self once dreamed about. Something your future self will miss. Something ordinary that you haven't really noticed in a while. And maybe you don't need to decide that your whole life is enough. Maybe that's too big a question. Just ask, is there enough here for this moment? Enough to notice? Enough to appreciate? Enough to be here? Because perhaps this was the good part too. This ordinary evening, this imperfect life, this moment you almost overlooked. Tomorrow you can keep building, but tonight, let it be enough. This has been Evening Reset. Quiet wisdom for tired people. If you'd like more evenings like this, you're welcome to come back. Good night.